Okay.
Just a chat. Just a chat.
Hello. Welcome to the next instalment of Royston Real, where we are talking to local business people, local people of interest and community champions. And today I'm delighted to say that from her busy schedule we have Cath Boughton of the listing, and I'm looking forward to chatting to Cath and find out a little bit more about her, what makes her tick, and what is the future of the listing magazine. Cath, thanks for coming in. It's be interesting for the viewers to find out a bit more about Cath, because everybody knows Cath with the listing.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming in.
Thank you. No, it's a pleasure to be here.
Right, so earliest childhood memory.
It's a very good question. So I had a bit of a think about this, and my earliest memory is actually when my sister was born. I was 3.5 at the time. And I've got a very clear memory of being on the hospital floor with my brother playing with the yellow truck that he'd been given. Maybe a present from his brand new sister, I don't know. And yeah, so I was 3.5, lived in Norwich at the time and lived there for another 5 years or so. Moved to Hampshire as a child and then moved up to this area when I was around 10 or so. So lived in Guildford Morden, and so even though I wasn't born in this area, I kind of see myself as a local girl. And my earliest memories, really of being in this area, so I've got a real affinity with it. My brother now is a high-flying diplomat. He works for the Foreign Office, but he's had postings out in Iraq, in Lebanon. He's been out to Damascus. I think he was there when Damascus fell, as it were. And we're very much hoping that we'll get a posting one day that we can go and visit him. Nice country and go and visit him. And my sister, so say 3.5 years younger than me, but she's emigrated to Australia. Oh. So that's really important to me now, to be able to go out and visit Australia every couple of years or so, and to go and see her and family out there. Obviously COVID's put a stop to it. But I did start this year seeing in New Year's Eve over Sydney Harbour Bridge. So
I saw really, Facebook thing posting on.
It was amazing. This was going to be my year, with lots of travel, but hey.
So you're into Royston, so presumably your parents started to work down there, you got involved into Royston, so you've been at school in this area?
Yeah, went to school in Bassingbourn.
Wow,
so I had 1 year at Guildford Morden Primary and then went to Bassingbourn Village College and onto Long Road.
Yeah, so pretty much a local girl, really.
Very much so. And then I left this area, went to university in Nottingham. Funnily enough, my own daughter is now at Nottingham Trent as well, and had a brilliant 3-4 years there, which was
What
good.
Did you read?
Business studies.
Oh, really?
And specialising in marketing.
I'm not so sure I should be shocked by that.
So there we go. I think,
I
think that was in my blood right from the start.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
It certainly helped.
Yeah, I can imagine. So that which leads on nicely to why start the listing.
Yeah. So it really got to cast your mind back to 2005, which 15 years ago, it was a time there wasn't any Facebook, no social media. And as I say, I grew up in this area, and by this point I've got a young family myself. And something that really struck me was that living in Royston, I didn't ever get to hear about what was happening in the local villages. And I knew that all the local villages had brilliant fakes, fairs. The September show in Guildford Morden was a highlight of the annual calendar. And you didn't hear about them in Royston. And I think Royston's always had this, a lot of people here see it in a negative light, hugely unfairly. I've never understood it. I think a lot of people are very good at knocking the place that they live in rather than championing it. I think it's changing now. I think people are much more positive about Royston, thank goodness.
Well, certainly with Robin Wood.
Oh my goodness, he's brilliant, isn't he? Absolutely brilliant for the town, and really speaks very highly of us all, which is wonderful. But I know when I was here with the children, I didn't perhaps see the positivity in Royston and couldn't access good local information. We had 2 local papers at the time, the Royston Crow, which is still going strong, and the Royston Weekly News. And something I was really conscious of was that both papers would focus on what had happened, not what was going to happen. And that was a real gap to me. It was a real gap as a young mum wanting to take children to free activities here, there and everywhere, and you couldn't access that information, as I say, pre-Facebook. So there was a gap in the market, and I was aware of that. Then what happened, my youngest daughter was due to start school, so she was 5 years old, and I needed to go back to work. So for the 7 years previously, I'd been working bit part jobs in Royston. It kind of tapped into what I always wanted to do. I've always wanted to run my own business. I remember that dream from, quite a young age really. And then I got to hear about other people producing local magazines throughout the UK. And a bit like you were saying earlier, I looked into it, and there were franchises for sale to set up a local magazine. And it's really disheartening when you actually have no money at all yourself and you think, oh, I don't want to pay out to set up a magazine. So I kind of dropped that idea, but then it kept coming back to me. And I was really aware that we needed something that's a bit more community focused in Royston, kind of grassroots level if you like. And then I started to think, hang on a sec, I could do this. I don't need a franchise to do it. What is actually needed to start a magazine? So I spent a year of planning, pretty much, speaking to people, putting the feelers out, getting ideas for content, speaking to local businesses. Funny enough, at the time I was running a very small business making handmade greetings cards, and I was looking at expanding that into wedding stationery. And as you know from a business background yourself, economies of scale are everything, and handmade cards and economies of scale just didn't really work together. So I could see there wasn't a future in that business, even though it was it was viable. It was a small viable business. So I had different contacts around and started speaking to them, and the idea for the listing just kind of grew and grew. And I invited friends around one evening to come up with a name for this brand new magazine. I had a list, maybe a short list of 10 different ideas, and we talked about it quite a lot over wine, and we decided the listing was the way to go, and that was it.
So from day one, you say, I'm going to start listing. You've got logistics presumably working out your printing, or did it just come in an A4 sheet to start with? How did it work?
Well, I've actually brought along...
Oh, look at that. That wasn't even prompted.
There you go, the very first issue. This was September 2005.
Wow.
It was black and white. The vision was to be colour from the start, and
but life was black and white then.
It was in black and white in 2005. But it was very much a simple magazine. There are still some businesses that advertise with us now that were in the very first issue, and our early customers were just absolutely wonderful. So there you go, John, for posterity. A copy of the very first issue of the listing.
Well, I think we should have that sewn stuck on, framed on the wall, don't you, really?
Black and white times.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So, I mean, that must have taken a long time to put together.
Absolutely.
I can't even begin to imagine where you started.
I've got visions, well, from a practical print point of view, of being on holiday in Wales, in Pembrokeshire, the week that this was going to print, and trying to find a Wi-Fi connection in Wales back in 2005. It wasn't easy. But somehow I think with a business you get over the logistical hurdles. I think
you're right.
What makes a business? Passion, vision, really believing in what you're doing, and having wonderful, amazing customers. And actually, from the very first month, really, the feelings, the feedback we were getting was positive. Had a long way to go. But yeah, I think that positivity from the start, you then feed off that, and you don't start learning until you actually launch your business. You really don't. You can have all the plans in the world.
Yeah. Was it just you at day one then?
Oh, absolutely.
It was just you did everything?
I did everything.
Worked out the advertising, costings, everything?
Absolutely everything.
I can't even begin to imagine.
And just speaking to people, suddenly all these contributions were coming in, and I think by month 4, I don't know, I look back now and I think failure was not an option for me, and that's maybe says something about me as a person. I didn't imagine it was going to, I just made my decision. This was launched the very month that Caitlin started school. So I had a young child going off to school, and this was it. The other option was I'd have maybe taken a job in London, but I'd been a fairly stay-at-home mum until then, so I didn't want to walk away from that really. So I wanted to balance it.
Yeah, lucky you did.
Oh, so glad I did it.
No, it was a good move. It was a good move. What's is there something that you must do every day to get yourself? I mean, for instance, this isn't about me, but I have since lockdown. I have to take cold showers, right? Not for any other reason.
Again, I saw this on
Oh,
Facebook.
you saw it? Yeah, so I stand outside.
Fascinated.
Well, unfortunately, we're not overlooked, and I have a shower and I'm off there doing it and doing my thing. But what I find is, because I was quite into meditation, that would start the day of meditation. But what I find is that a cold shower actually starts you off. And every day where I don't get this cold shower, and I find I struggle, right? So what is there anything you have to do?
It's a very good question, and I'm not the most routine-driven of people. I'm quite,
Which is surprising.
yeah, quite spontaneous and not hugely routine-driven. Although obviously working to a monthly process and deadlines, that sorts me out and keeps me on track. But lockdown, particularly this year, has taken any element of routine away, and I then realised how much I struggled without having a routine. So I think that's something that was one of the very many things I've learned this year. And if you like, my one thing I must do every day, my drug of choice, being in my mid to late 40s now, is a cup of tea in the morning. So that's my absolute go-to routine, is until I've had my caffeine from a good cup of tea. So that's an absolute thing in there in my day. I would like to say that
You go for a 10-mile run. And,
going for a walk every day is that's what I aspire to do, because I know it's good for me and it makes me feel so good. I actually feel the endorphins. I get the runner's high. I don't run. I never really don't like running, so I get the equivalent of the runner's high from a good walk in nature and being outside, and that's really important to me. But with the darker evenings, it's tougher to do, so I tend to do that on the weekends, and I kind of cram in fresh air, nature and exercise over my weekends. So that might be gardening, it might be going for a long walk. So I don't have a set routine of something that I must do every day, apart from a cup of tea in the morning and listening to music. Every day the radio is on or my playlist is on, and music just lifts me. That's so important to me to have that. And the other thing is food. Planning that nice evening meal.
Food's important.
I'm a real foodie, so planning that evening's meal, whatever it may be, it keeps me going, really.
Yeah, we'll have
silly
different
things like that.
Yeah, people have different things. So, but I do recommend naked showers in the garden. But there you go.
I think I need some convincing on that one. Tell the neighbours to be out as well.
So did I. It wasn't the fact that all the positive reports on it, that it actually does you good, because it actually just gets everything firing. That you're shocked into doing something. But the problem with it, I was saying it today to Helen, that the problem with it, you never get used to it.
Wow. So it always feels like a shock every day.
Every single day is like the first day you've done it. It's probably not, but that's what it feels like. But I guess, as was pointed out to me, that if that wasn't the case, then where'd you go from there? I discovered Rory Sutherland, and for people that don't know, Rory Sutherland's a behavioural psychologist that works for Ogilvy's, the main advertising. I think he's fantastic, right? I mean, he's just so. What's your take on him?
Oh, I think he's so inspirational, absolutely inspirational. I saw him, there's a really good marketing, it was called the Marketing Meetup in Cambridge, and I started to go along to networking groups there, probably middle of last year, and they had to switch online. Collaboration is everything in any industry, and to me, we've got a very great working relationship with the Crow, for example, but I believe in collaborations in business and in marketing. We work very closely with C4B, another marketing agency in Royston, and have just moved into their office, that kind of thing. So Rory did a talk for the Marketing Meetup, and he was just so knowledgeable and inspirational. As you say, behavioural psychology, I always think everything is about people. People are people, and if you're connecting with people, then that's half the battle. And behavioural psychology gives you that insight into what makes people tick.
But what a fascinating thing, and something I picked up you said on this talk, he said a flower is a weed but with a marketing budget.
Yes.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It's
exactly
that.
It's very good. Exactly I mean, if I had my life again, I think I would have definitely. Well, now I can't say that because I think it's really great. But you like to think that, I think I would have gone down the psychology.
Psychology is fascinating, and
mind blowing.
But I find marketing fascinating.
Yeah. They're not dissimilar.
They're really not, and I think something that didn't occur to me until I've been perhaps publishing for about 3 years or so. I suddenly went, oh my goodness, this is what I wanted to do. This goes back to when I was younger. I had visions of wanting to work in the agency life in London. Life didn't work out that way because after I went to university, within 3 months of graduating, I had a baby. So my life took a really different turn, and because of that, I think when I started the listing, then realised that actually I was actually doing what I'd always wanted to do. I was working with small businesses, I was promoting people, I was actually living and breathing marketing in that kind of way, which was really exciting. And I think for me it's all about word of mouth. That's the purest form of marketing, and that's how I like to see it. And I think the listing is word of mouth, just taken a bit further, reaching more people, but it still is that word of mouth. And I think if we've made one person's life different through an issue of the magazine, helping them connect with somebody in the town, we get feedback to say newcomers have found a social activity or groups of friends through it, then oh my goodness, that's a legacy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It works
absolutely.
for me. Makes me feel good to do that.
Okay. What's your superpower?
Multitasking. Multitasking.
That's a female thing, isn't it?
Well, I was going to say, I think every woman, and I think very many men as well, have to be great at multitasking. I think I run a home, I've got 2 grown-up children now, they're now 22 and 20, both away at university, but they still need me. I run a business, I've got a fairly busy life, and I think you have to have oversight of everything, and that to me is really important. So multitasking and just having a view on where everything is up to. Is everyone okay? Sometimes it can feel like spinning plates. I don't enjoy life when it goes out of kilter, and stress is a very real problem. I don't necessarily just mean for me, but just in general, stress and mental health issues are something that I'm very passionate about, and organisations such as mine and are just absolutely amazing, because they can we've all got the tools within ourselves to be able to live the lives that we want, but life takes over and we forget that sometimes. And again, going back to what I do every day, the walks, the being in nature, it's grounding, and that's one of the things that keeps me sane, keeps me on track. But yes, a superpower of multitasking.
Multitasking, it's good enough superpower, so I can't multitask, as will be evident. I just, well, one thing at a time. I don't even like planning, because I find if you plan, I think somewhere said that, it's all right having a goal, it's like in business, we've got a goal. We might have a 5-year goal, but you know what, you can spend so long thinking about your 5-year goal, you don't actually achieve anything in the present time. So you have to kind of set smaller goals just to focus yourself on and get on and do it. And the thing that starts me off, as I said, is my shower in the morning. That's my thing that works for me. And then from a mental health perspective as well, it's brilliant. In fact, I think it's recommended to people with mental health issues.
That's really good.
It fires everything, and it kind of gets your mind. You forget. You just get actually so cold, and it just sets your mind up. And because as we know, as you rightly said, that everything's within our own grasp, our own power. And it's only our mind that makes us in a bad mood or whatever it happens to be. And if you've got a trigger that can actually not make that happen, then it's got to be good news for everybody.
I agree. It's like we've all got barriers within ourselves, and I think we put those barriers there, and it's overcoming those. It's remembering to live in the here and now, as you say. We've got goals and plans, but this year again has really taught us you can have all the goals and plans in the world, but again, we were chatting earlier about businesses adapting and people adapting. We've all had to adapt this year, and that's something that's given me so much joy, and I'm so proud and passionate about all the small local businesses that are working. So, it's a privilege doing the job that I'm doing. Is an absolute privilege, and I speak to different business owners, and a business owner, it's not just a job, it's not. It's your whole way of life. There's no 9 to 5 there. It's an absolute passion, and our country is made up. I can't remember the FSB statistic, but small independents make up the backbone of this country, aren't we? And that's me. But it's real people's real lives. So nobody's here to be millionaires, but everyone's here to be able to make a decent, honest living for themselves. And if we can obviously help them on their way, but something I find is that speaking to business owners, they confide in you. We can be their sounding board. We can actually, hear their hopes, dreams, frustrations, and that's such a privilege to be taken into people's confidence and to hear that. And yeah, really, really important.
And so one of the questions, it's a great question actually. I think I heard someone ask Roy Southern the same thing. If you could pick up the phone and phone your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give them? Sorry, I might have thrown that out a little bit.
Yeah, that's
off-piste.
That's a big one. Do you know what? I think I just want to say it's going to be okay. It's okay. It's all going to be okay. I think when you're younger, and I certainly know where I was at, I did have big hopes, dreams, aspirations. As I say, life went in a slightly different turn because I started my family younger than I perhaps planned to. And I think there was a certain point in my 20s where I felt, dare I say, a bit resentful of bringing up a young family at that time because my peers were living the London life and having building up decent careers. I wasn't. I didn't really start my career until my early 30s. And I think don't ever give up on your hopes, dreams, aspirations. Keep them, you're not mad for thinking that way. Keep them close, revisit them. But if you've got focus and drive, you'll achieve it anyway in a very non-linear path. I think through the education system we're perhaps all geared up to think that there's a one-set way to be successful, and success, by the way, to me, it's a very personal thing, success, isn't it? But to me it's about freedom. Success is feeling free, and that's one of the things, even though I probably have never worked harder by running my own business, but it does give you a certain freedom in life. I can choose whether I'm working in the day or the evening, and so yeah, that I think is really important.
Keep focused.
Keep focused. Keep your dreams there, and life will work out. It has a funny way of working out, despite what path it takes. And I never did make the London life, but I love visiting London when I can, and that's fine now. I've absolutely reconciled that now. That actually, I probably wasn't ever going to be a corporate bod. I don't think I'd have fitted into that mould, and I can accept that now and see that what a privilege that I've been able to be entrepreneurial and do things my own way. Again, that's something I love seeing with other young people. Is I think entrepreneurship is much more widely accepted than it was even 15 years ago, and certainly, and it's a valid career option to do things your own way.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's perfect. Yeah. So you can't do it if you've got the phone.
Well, exactly. I wish I could go back to that. 16-year-old, 20-year-old, and say it's going to be okay.
It's all worked out fine, and the problems that we have, they have a tendency of working their way through, don't they?
They do.
Destiny is all, as the Vikings say, apparently.
Yeah. Indeed.
Okay. Well, this final question for you is, what's in store for the listing?
Good question. So we've been going for 15 years now. I don't know what the percent is, but so many businesses don't survive the first year, let alone the first 3 years. So
I think the first 10 years are the worst, actually.
We've got to 15 years.
You're right now. Yeah.
It's a really interesting industry because print and digital are two things. If you like, digital is you could argue it's the challenge to print. I would argue that print has never been more important because it does stand out. It goes hand in hand with digital. So I think one thing that's next for us is continuing on the journey of staying focused on new technologies and being present in both print and digital formats. Recent survey that we ran was very much focused that our customers value both the print and online jointly together. So I do think there's a synergy there. I've always said we'd start a new magazine for a slightly wider geographical area, or a new geographical area. So I've said that for the past 5 years. Maybe 2021 will be the year that I'll pull my finger out and make a start on that. So that's important. But longer term, professionally, what I would really love to do, and I'm talking perhaps 10 years down the line from where I am now, I very much see that I'm going to be hands-on in the business for the next 2 or 3 years at least. But say 10 years from now, I'd love to move into non-exec positions on different boards of small companies and charities. Again, I think it's something that I feel very passionately about, is helping other businesses with their strategy. It's a lonely journey running a business at times. It's very challenging, and everyone needs that sounding board. And I've got people that I turn to when I need to, and I'd very much like to get into that line of work. And really, that's where I feel my career is heading over the next 10 years or so. Is
What
to be
will
able to pass on.
the next 10 years look like, I wonder?
Exactly.
Scary.
It's very unknown now, isn't it?
I mean, it's just scary. But I think the good thing is, I think, out of the adversity that has been COVID, and certainly the first lockdown, I think it's shown up a lot of businesses' weaknesses in their businesses, and I think that's things to be working on. And I think there's things, resilience is important, technology is important. In fact, I read somewhere that said that quite a large time they were planning their technology for the next, I think, 2 or 3 years. When COVID hit, they brought it all forward. And I think adversity brings out the creativity.
Yeah.
And if you're an entrepreneur, if you're in business, you can adapt to that, and you become more flexible, you can roll with the punches, and you go with. So I think it's been a lot of, obviously, bad things, but there's been a lot of positive things as far as business is concerned. And I guess the next thing we've got to worry about is, and especially as we were saying about stress and things, that the stress that's going to come now as a result of people maybe in their 50s now, and maybe haven't got a job, or the young kids are not going to be able to go back to what they want to do. So there's a lot of things to look at. It's encouraging that people like yourself look at mental health issues, and it's going to be vital.
It's absolutely vital. It's so vital, and as I say, organisations such as mine are just phenomenal in helping people. I believe they have got some extra funding from the central government, thank goodness, and I think mental health is on the agenda far more than it ever was, which is just essential. Taking care of yourself, there's so much you can do yourself, not when you're in crisis point,
then
it's too late, but I think it's preventing yourself getting from crisis points. So it is knowing what your well-being things are, what makes you tick, what makes you happy, and it isn't chocolate and a glass of wine.
No, it isn't. Well, it's a fix, but it don't last forever, does it?
It causes problems.
It doesn't last forever.
So many problems. So it really is about looking after yourself in that way. But just reading back to what you said about businesses adapting, oh my goodness, on a local level, just look at what our local businesses have achieved, and that's fantastic. Seeing, takeaways, seeing people adapting and finding new ways through. My heart is actually breaking for the beauty industry at the moment, the hair and beauty industry,
It's not good.
particularly, who put so many PPE measures in place, and then to have that taken away, it's heartbreaking. And I know we'll all support them when they're able to come back. Same with the pubs and the leisure industry and live events. Goodness me, I miss live music.
Musicians, they're absolutely, where did you go, what did you do?
Oh my goodness, it's heartbreaking to think that creativity and entrepreneurship could be kind of killed off, really. So I very much hope that does have a resurgence.
Yeah, I'm
we're
sure
all there
it
to
will.
support it when we can. There are seismic changes in business and in the world. Is it progress? That's a whole other debate. But it's change, and I think as people we have to be adaptable, and you have to keep your mental strength there, that resilience there, because the one thing that is certain in life is change. Change is
that's only certainty. Yeah, absolutely right.
It really is.
Cath, it's been great. I haven't seen you for a long time, so it's been nice seeing you as well.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for taking the time out to talk to us, and no doubt when we get back to drinking we can have a pint.
Have a nice glass of wine in the pub. That was very, very civilised. I look forward to that day.
Perfect. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, John.
Cheers.
Thank you.